The sun beat down on her as she climbed up the steps. Each step, a reminder of where she's been, each step a physical journey, each step an emotional climb. You can't see her pain because she hides it behind her positive, hardworking persona in the community. She hides it behind her loving care of her siblings, of her relatives, of her friends. She weathers it well, but today, she breaks. It overtakes her. The years of consultations and trials and almosts, until all she can do is fall on the ground, on her knees, choked up, mouth moving inaudibly as she begs and pleads, whatever it takes, public pleas, tapping every resource she has, depleting her savings until all at once, on her knees, weeping and whispering, heartbroken open, she prays. Yah, source of everything, if only she can be blessed with a child. Up until this point, this is my story, and this may be your story too. It's the story of Hannah, a woman the Jewish tradition lauds as the creator of silent prayer. The rabbis of the Talmud honor that highest above all. A woman bearing her soul in public, exposing her most vulnerable until all she can do is fall on her knees and weep and whisper at the temple of Shiloh. I never thought I would be standing here at this moment. I mean, my parents always said to me I could achieve anything I wanted to as long as I worked really hard at it. And 90% of that came true. I became a musician, a singer, a leader, an educator, just not yet a mommy. And trust me, I worked really hard at it. I mean, I practiced a lot. I put everything I had into it, my heart, my soul, my body, my finances, and yet here I stand, 42 years old, no closer to becoming a mother. Instead, I've become a statistic. In the now dated 2001 National Jewish Population Study, the percentage of Jewish women who remain childless is slightly higher than the general US population. And age 35 to 39, almost half of those Jewish women remain childless, whereas it's just a fifth of the general population. So I kind of fit the profile. I married at 35. I didn't start to try to conceive until 38. And like many people before me, after several fruitless months, I went to consult a fertility specialist. And let me tell you, when I walked into that waiting room, I felt like I was at a Jewish General Assembly. I like knew half the room. How did I not know that all these people were struggling with fertility? And then I met with my doctor who suggested an aggressive treatment of in vitro fertilization, or IVF, and I had another realization. These treatments, which are somewhere between $12,000 and $15,000 per treatment, which, by the way, most people need multiple treatments, were not covered by insurance. And so I stepped back and took this all in, the exorbitant costs, and the fact that I knew so many, this was obviously a pervasive problem in the Jewish community. No one was talking about it. So I did. I started telling my friends and my colleagues my story, and wouldn't you know it, every single person I talked to had a story themselves. And as I wrote blog posts and Facebook posts and even wrote an article for the Shema Journal, which after some loving nudging, they actually dedicated an entire issue to Jewish fertility challenges, the more I spoke about it, the more people would come to me, most of them confidentially, and let me know that they felt heard, that they felt that my story was reflecting their story, that they felt less alone. And quite frankly, so did I. You see, that's one of the most crippling parts of this whole piece. the absolute crippling isolation that one feels on a Jewish fertility journey. And so the more I talked about it, I would do hand raises at conferences, right? How many of you have been impacted by the financial or emotional struggles of a fertility journey? And every hand would go up. This is an all-encompassing issue. It affects your relationships with your friends. Let's be honest, sometimes it's really hard for me to be around pregnant women or newborn babies. It impacts your relationship with if you have a spouse or a partner or your parents. It impacts your career or your career choices. It is an all-encompassing struggle, and for way too many people in the Jewish community, it is a silent, secret, and sometimes shameful struggle. And why shame, right? It is so common after all. Well, let's look way, way back to the book of Genesis, where even before we get the commandment to observe Shabbat, we get the commandment, pru or vu, be fruitful and multiply, increase. And that is the imperative. Make no mistake, in case you missed the memo, later on, after Noah and the whole flood sequence, we get it 2 more times, in case you forgot. So to me, that is saying that is the imperative of the Jewish community. In other words, if you are not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. If you are not helping to solve the NJPS birth rate crisis, well, add that to your plate. You're welcome. So what can the Jewish community do about this? You would imagine with such a pervasive problem, what are the resources, the financial resources, the support groups, the massive Jewish communal initiatives that have been created for this? Up till now, not much. So perhaps our narratives can provide for us some support on cutting through this crippling isolation. So you've already met Hannah, right, who basically asks God, listen, I'll make a deal with you. I'll bargain, okay? If I'm given a child, I'm going to sign that kid up for every single program the Jewish community has to offer. And that kid is going to give back to the community. And that's exactly what Samuel did after the priest told her that she would have a child. Or we have Sarah, who basically challenges God and says, okay, you think you can do everything and anything? 90-year-old, post-menopausal. Go. And of course, a messenger comes to her and says, you will have a child. And she does. So let's see if we get this, all right? There seems to be a formula emerging. Ask God, bargain, make deals, challenge, and the result, a child. So I tried it. Lying on the operating table, about to have eggs surgically removed from my hyperstimulated ovaries, the anesthesiologist asks me to count down from 10 to 1, and I pray. And then 3 to 5 days of waiting to see if any of those eggs actually fertilize with my partner's sperm, hoping for a viable embryo or 2, I pray. And then back in stirrups on the operating table, again, waiting for them to insert a catheter into my uterus to send those viable embryos into my uterine system. I pray. And for the next 20 minutes after that process, the endless 20 minutes of willing those embryos to make their way to the uterine wall and implant themselves, I pray. I bargain like Hannah. Okay, I don't know if it's possible. I will be more of a committed Jew, okay? I challenge like Sarah. Why not? Why couldn't there be a divine miracle on my behalf? I wished, holding ritual items like a dried etrog or a fertility amulet with ancient Hebrew letters on it. I prayed using the words of the tradition, mi ma'amakim keraticha, ya. Out of the dark, deep depths I cry, hear me. I pray from the words of my own heart. I know I will make a great parent. I have so much love to give. And the result? And the feelings? Desperation, paralysis, deep, profound sadness, and isolation. But maybe we can look at these narratives, not just for that formula, but perhaps to shed light on something else, which is that in both of those narratives, there were others there that were witnessing and saying to Sarah, to Hannah, a priest, an angel, a messenger, you will have a child. And perhaps that is our Jewish communal role, to stand there alongside, next to someone and say, if you want to have a child, we're going to help make that happen. I mean, look at what the Jewish community does when there's an issue that's in front of them. They galvanize together, pulling support together. I mean, look at BirthRATE Israel, right? $3,000 per participant, or as of, I think, 2009, $450 million to basically create the next generation of Jewish babies. I mean, it's actually not a joke. One of the founders and funders is well known to have said that that's the reason the program was created, to create the next generation of Jewish babies. So federations, foundations, and individuals all came together and to potentially create a next gen of Jewish babies with a population that won't even deal with that question till at least 5 to 15 years, if then. So let's imagine for a second. Can we dream a little bit here? Let's imagine, okay? What if we were to not bet on a hypothetical, but what if we were to galvanize together financial resources to help parents, future parents, individuals and couples that are ready now, that are eager now to create a Jewish family? Imagine what kind of a message that would send, that we are going to hug and embrace you in one of your most vulnerable, lowest moments of your life. Your feelings of isolation are heard. If we're going to gamble with millions, let's double down on fertility. You thinking what I'm thinking? It's time for the BirthRATE Program. And I really can't underscore how important money is to this conversation, because it actually becomes a bit of a socioeconomic and privilege issue, right? So it assumes that you have the financial wherewithal or resources to be able to get the amazing healthcare program or pay out of pocket for treatments like IVF or egg donation or sperm donation or surrogacy, which can be upwards of $100,000, or adoption. You can understand how somebody might internalize that having a Jewish family is for the haves. So let's think about what we can do. And I do want to say that money is not the only way of solving the isolation issue of having a fertility journey. Let's share our stories. If you have a fertility journey story, share it. People will feel heard. They will feel that we are cutting through their isolation. It normalizes this. Having fertility challenges is a normal thing. And let's ask questions, right? What is happening in our community? Are there resources available? Are there support groups? Are there funds? What is going on in our local communities? And do people know about it? If nobody knows about the resource, then what good is it, right? And let's call on our clergy. Are our local clergy equipped to handle the emotional and spiritual challenges of having a fertility journey? And are they talking about it publicly from the Bima, inviting people to share their stories, pulling their colleagues together to create a local fund themselves? And the local funding piece is a big deal. I want to be clear about something. No one, I repeat, no one budgets for fertility. It's true. And so if you can't afford to have a child, let's think about it this way. If we are not there to help people in their low moments where they don't have the wherewithal to go through this journey without resources and help, and then if and when they are blessed with creating a family, we ask them to spend their money on sending their kids to Jewish preschools and day camps and Jewish religious schools and day schools, doesn't that feel a little bit hypocritical? So let's help them in those vulnerable moments. We have an opportunity here to be like the priest, to be like the messenger, the angel. That is our role as the Jewish community, to cut through the isolation of fertility challenges. And we're counting on all of us to do this. Thank you.